This is the SAU Report, a program featuring interviews with the faculty, staff, students, and alumni of Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.
Hello and good evening, and welcome to the SAU Report. Once again, I'm Richard Moore.
And I'm Ozzie Greene.
And today on the program, we are very privileged to have two very special guests with us here, two new faculty members at SAU, Dr. Kirsten Halling, got that right, and also Mr. Jim Graham. Dr. Halling, a foreign language teacher here, and Mr. Graham, director of the University Computer Services. And to start off, we'll start off with you, Ms. Halling, and we want to just know a little bit about you, and where were you born, and just tell a little bit about yourself in general.
Well, I was born in Hemel Hempstead, England. It's a suburb of London, about 45 minutes north of London, and lived there till I was 6, and then my family moved to the United States and settled in Maryland, outside of D.C. Grew up in Maryland, in suburban Maryland, and did most of my schooling in Virginia, with a stint here or there in Europe. When I was undergrad, I was in Nice for a year as a student in Nice, France, and in Sevilla, Spain. I was there for 6 months as a student also, and taught camp just outside of Paris for 2 summers. And also was in Bordeaux, France, as a university TA type of thing, a lectrice they called it. So.
Real interesting.
All right, Mr. Graham, tell us about the job you do here at SAU.
Everything. Actually, Computer Services is a service-oriented organization that is responsible for the computing on campus, in essence. Dealing with electronic messaging, dealing with being able to track student records, student information, being able to allow global communication via the internet. My role is to direct the team effort of being responsible to keep all that going. In addition, we have many of the academic software programs and applications that are being executed that have to be monitored, have to be installed, have to be maintained. And so we're all a part of making sure that everything gets put up, gets installed, gets executing the way it's supposed to be. And then of course trying to be able to get users acclimated with executing those programs. Training is a big issue. So it's a part of the whole aspect of working with the computerization on campus.
What made you take this position here at SAU?
There are a couple of reasons why I took this position. One of them was the challenges that were present. There's been a lot of changes here at the university. The summer has been full of massive projects. And it's very intriguing to see what has happened in the future direction. Another issue is a real spiritual peace about coming and knowing that this was a very solid move for my family and I. Also realizing that the people here on the university are very positive people, very supporting people, just a real good environment that I felt to work in, but also to bring my family. And the community as well. The community is very supporting, seem to be very solid toward the entity for the town and then for the university.
Now, Dr. Halling, you were telling us about your many travels and your beginnings in England and all. Sounds real interesting. Is this your first time down in the South?
Well, I was in Virginia, and I know some people don't consider Virginia the South,
Right.
but Virginians would be very, very upset to hear that.
Has there been any culture shock so far here this far south?
Yeah, the accent's different, and some people think I'm a real foreigner when they hear my accent. One thing that really surprises me is that everyone asks that question. Everyone says, "Oh, I bet you have a lot of culture shock being down here in the South." You know, not at all, really. It's a different kind of environment in a lot of ways than the environment I was used to in Virginia. I was in a bigger city, and it wasn't too far away from Washington, D.C., and only an hour away from Richmond, so it was a bigger metropolis, there were more, it was just bigger. So this is different. I mean, I'm sure a small town in Maryland would have more in common with Magnolia than Charlottesville, Virginia did.
Mr. Graham, I was wondering, what are your views on the increasing use of technology and computers? You know, a lot of folks saying, a lot of teachers right now, as a matter of fact, are putting homework like on email or something like that. Do you see that as being the wave of the future, and possibly talking about the classroom environment maybe becoming extinct in about 15 to 20 years? Do you see that happening?
Yes and no. Computer technology will always continue to develop and grow with us, with our generation, with those generations to follow us in many different applications, both educationally and in the industry. I don't think the classroom will ever go away because of the human interaction that is needed, the hands-on environment. You can never replace that via any kind of interactive vehicle of presenting information or teaching. I think that we'll see a continued growth in the use of technology, of course. Compressed video presentations and teaching will continue to be utilized, and it will grow. I think sometimes industry and academia has been involved in pushing technology a little bit too far sometimes into the classroom. I think there are some very positive things. I think perhaps it could be used very, very much so as support tools for the classroom, but I think that sometimes the use of technology should not be the main emphasis. That's not to say that it cannot be, because there are some definite applications that would be true to, but there are a number of them that I think that get pushed for all the wrong reasons. I know that in the past number of years, instruction via technology is a real big issue. Multimedia presentations, there's a place for it, there's a time for it. I don't necessarily think that it's for every application, however. So I think that, yes, we'll see an increased use of technology, but it will never replace the classroom. Internet, global communications will certainly enhance the learning opportunities, the opportunities to obtain degrees, but there will still have to be the human interaction, and I don't think we'll ever get away from that.
Have you worked in any other jobs not dealing with the computers? If so, tell me a little bit about what you've done in the past.
Computers have been a major part of my work life. I obtained interest in computers when I went to college. When I first went to college, it was a result of a basketball scholarship, and I quickly realized that basketball was going to pay my way through school. The glamour dreams as a child of playing professional basketball were, of course, there, but it didn't take me long to realize that wasn't the case, but it was enough to carry me through school, and as soon as I hit the college environment, I realized computers was something I really enjoyed. So my 4 years through college, I was very, very involved with computers in all realms. My first job out of college, however, was hands-off, and it was more or less just getting a job. Coming straight out of college, it's not as easy to find a job as what a person might think.
Very true.
But I did obtain a job. I worked at that place. It was the Boeing Company in Wichita, Kansas, for 9 months before I finally had an offer to get into programming, which is where my training was. And that would have been in 1981. So in 1981, I made the jump to computers and have been involved with it since.
Being from Kansas, was it a culture shock for you coming to Magnolia? Because I know it had been for me, being from Detroit, and I came from Kansas. I went to school out of Kansas for 2 years. So how much of a culture shock is it for you
Well,
being here in
Ozzie,
Magnolia?
we did chat about that the other day. And coming from Great Bend, Kansas, a town about the size of Magnolia, made the transition much easier. There is a different attitude, a different feeling of the town, of being more caring about the community as a whole. There are some different attitudes as far as religion is concerned. There are some different feelings about how things could be done, should be done, may be done. Things that my family and I have not been associated with. So there have been some changes in that regard, from the aspect of the smallness of the town, very much accepted from the aspect of have been a part of that. It has been amazing that as we have come down here, though, the climate has been some changes. In Kansas, as you're aware, it'll get hot, but the wind blows all the time.
All the time.
So here, the wind blows about as much as it doesn't blow in Kansas. So that has been some changes. I enjoy some outside activities, and you adapt it to the wind. And here it's like, where's the wind? So it has been some adjustment for that, but minor. But most of it has been from the community and learning people and getting to know people and expectations and the things of that nature. And it's really been enjoyable to know that the community stands behind the university at this point, and that for the most part I feel like it's one big family at the university as well as within the community. And that's been very positive.
Dr. Holling, of course, the teaching job for the French/Spanish teacher opened up last spring, I believe,
Yes,
with the resignation of Dr. Hennessy, and some of you old hands out there may remember Miss Suter about 4 or 5 years before that. But how did you come to know about the opening here at Southern Arkansas University?
The traditional way. There's a job list that comes out in the fall and in the winter, and it's the MLA job list, Modern Language Association's job list, and most respectable institutions such as SAU will advertise in that job list. And they receive many, many applications from people who are interested and file through them. And then the first contact I had with SAU was Dr. Picorni called one evening and interviewed me in Spanish. Of course, my PhD is in French.
Might as well get right on that.
She wanted to make sure that I'd be able to teach Spanish. So that was my first contact with SAU, and then I had an interview down here in the spring, which was really positive, and then the rest is history.
Of course, you only have a couple of weeks, I guess, of teaching here under your belt so far, but what has been your impression so far, the SAU faculty, staff, students, etc.?
The faculty in the English department, I don't know much about the faculty elsewhere, but the faculty in the English department is incredibly supportive, often popping their heads, and even Jim popping his head into my office just to see how I'm doing, and offering support whenever I need it. And the students are incredibly good sports. As you both know, I had you all singing and doing a little dance the first day of class, and there were no rolled eyes. Everyone participated, and that's been the case the whole time. I'm really pleased with the way students are trying, and just really good sports, and that's a lot to say in your favor. So I'm enjoying it tremendously. Classes are very, very exciting for me.
Very good. Ozzie?
I really enjoyed being in your class so far. And,
Thank you.
What made you decide that teaching foreign language was a thing for you?
Well, was there another part of that question?
No,
I just interrupted. Sorry. Well, I guess I've always been interested in foreign languages ever since I was a little girl, and I used to hear about my dad's travels. He used to tell me about his travels in France and all the adventures he had. And of course, I lived in England, moved to America, and instantly noticed that not only was there a different accent, but there was a different vocabulary, and you had to get used to the different vocabulary, intonations, accent, and everything. And I thought it was fascinating. Even at 6 years old, I was aware of this difference. And so I think that really encouraged my interest in language, and my family likes to travel, and so I was exposed to different cultures. And as I took classes, I had fantastic teachers who gave me great bases in both languages, and I just felt that that was the path I wanted to follow. So here I am.
How large is your staff in the UCS, Mr. Greene? Can you tell me a little bit
Not
more
big
about
enough.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, which I would hope many of the people on campus would see, and a lot of that is because of the massive projects that I referred to earlier. We have about 10 people in the staff that's responsible for maintaining servers, maintaining 650 PCs across campus, maintaining the telephone network, the backbone network, being able to answer questions. We've tried to set the department up at this point to where we have a help desk area so that if a person has a question that they can call a number and get a response. Most of the time they'll get a human voice. With the new phone system, we have voicemail that we're trying to utilize to the best of our ability. But sometimes you'll have multiple calls that come in and you can't get all the calls answered as quickly as what you would like. But so we try to hit it off with that, and then from there, then we'll divvy up projects. But there's about 10 of us that are trying to make the department support the campus.
This is a question I really wanted to ask you a lot. How do you think that before long a new computer lab will have to be built because of the increasing size and the SAU students?
The question of lab size is probably one that will come to head very quickly. Being new to the university, I do not know what has traditionally happened, but I've got some good senses from the staff and a good staff that we have in computer services. I know that the Commons is a very busy place, and many students have stopped by and chatted with me already or sent me email. I've had a surprisingly large number of email from students, which I'm glad to receive, indicating the busyness of Commons. And there's almost 80 systems in Commons, and if they're that busy, that full on a repeated basis, it will become an issue of being able to provide other options and opportunities for students. We have a lab in the agribusiness building. Right now, the hours on it are not quite the same, but I believe it's generally open. We may see more runoff in that particular location, but I would venture to say at some point we will see increased opportunities made to put more systems out. But it will take some time, and of course, budgetary constraints are always a concern. Each student pays a $2 per credit hour fee for technology, and that money is funneled for those exact purposes. And I've been very impressed that administratively they make sure that's where the money goes, and they monitor it well, and that's a very positive aspect, I think. So time will tell, but I think we probably will have to cross that bridge sooner than not.
Mr. Graham, I was wondering, why was the decision made to change over to the new system? I believe it's Windows 95, is that correct? Or
there's been a combination of changes, moving from strictly VMS operating system, moving more towards a Microsoft, Windows NT being server-based, and then Windows 95 and Windows NT at the workstation. Why? That might be a question many people would like to try and answer themselves, or would like to know the answer. Microsoft is becoming a very dominant player in the computer age. Client server, the ability to do a lot of your work at the desktop is becoming very prevalent. And as we do that, we like to put the intelligent workstations at your fingertips instead of relying on a centralized system. So as we move into Windows 95, Windows NT, it gives us the ability to be able to let you as a user at your desktop do the work you need to do. But it also gives us the ability to keep centralized information intact, keep it backed up, make sure it's protected, be able to service and provide applications to you, and yet allow you the freedom to do what you want on your remote system. The other big advantage is the graphical user interface, or oftentimes referred to as GUI. The more that we get into that, the easier it is to use, the point, the click. You don't have to be able to know how to use the keyboard as well as what you do with a mouse. Again, the point, click. And so it's a case of the more that we see that being used, the more it becomes a smart decision in moving that way. Industry trends are taking us that way as well, and as long as we can stay with those trends, the easier it is to make transitions and to make changes that will benefit students, faculty, and staff and administration.
and with the switch to the new system comes a switch in internet, what do you call it, browsers, I guess, from Netscape Navigator to Microsoft Explorer.
Yes. Traditionally, Netscape has been the product that has been used as a internet browser. I'm sure you're aware there are many kinds of browsers that can be used. Netscape has become a very popular one. One of the reasons is because its availability. It's basically free to be pulled down. You can buy versions that are a little bit more enhanced, but they've done such a good job with the freeware, shareware, that it's not necessary. Explorer is Microsoft's option to using internet. The feeling is that if you're using the Microsoft suite of Office Professional or or Office 95 or Office 97, Explorer comes a part of it, so let's use it. Yeah, a little bit more consistent, being able to maintain, and being able to use it. Netscape is available, I think, on some machines. UCS basically has not pulled it down, but I know students can, and I know some have, and that's okay. The intent is, if you know how to use one, you should be able to know how to use another.
They're fairly similar.
Yeah, so our feeling has been, it's not critical which one you use, but that you know how to use it, and that you can use it to do your work or to meet your needs.
Okay. Changing gears here just a little bit, direct this question to you, Dr. Halling. Tell us a little bit about your family and where are you currently staying here in the Magnolia area?
I have my husband.
Yeah, I would say that.
My husband and I, and our daughter, our 1.5-year-old daughter, Charlotte, all live on campus. We're neighbors with Jim and the Graham family, and we're within walking distance of classes, and we're enjoying being on campus, in the campus community, and the near the farms, and we take bike rides around the farms. So it's a nice place to be. We appreciate living on campus.
Good. Ozzie?
Dr. Halling, how was life growing up, being that you have traveled basically all around the world?
Well, I haven't really traveled all over the world, just mainly Europe, I would say. But it's my parents my mother and father are extremely supportive, and as a family, an English family in America, we were especially close, I think, for a lot of reasons. We also didn't have the extended family that a lot of people have, and that I've always sort of envied, you know, being close to the grandparents and being close to the aunts and uncles. So I guess it's made for us to be more independent, and possibly that's one of the reasons why it was easier for me. And my husband's family was the same way. His parents were both from Belgium, they were both from Belgium. And so most of his family was in Europe and not in this country. And perhaps that's part of the reason why we feel that we can pick up and move more easily than other people who are more rooted, more grounded. So I don't know, I think there's probably some of that, the whole idea of being immigrants, first-generation immigrants in the country, and you know, dealing with a whole different set of givens, a whole different set of family givens. So.
Mr. Graham, how was life for you growing up, being from basically a little small town out there in Kansas?
The aspect of growing in a small town, growing up in a small town, has some advantages and of course some disadvantages. Being from a major metropolitan area such as Detroit gives you some options that you simply don't have in Greene, Kansas, or in Magnolia, Arkansas, as far as that goes. We adapted and we enjoyed what we had and took advantage of it. Being in a town of 11,000 and not worrying about many of the things that you might in a metropolitan area had some major advantages to it. You knew a lot of the people of the town. They supported you in many of the activities. I was an athlete growing up, and the town supported athletics in the school system very, very well. Mm-hmm. So it became a case and a feeling of being able to create success and feeling successful, but also feeling that you are part of a community. So I think it prepared me quite well for a lot of the things that I have done. Because of my environment, much like Kirsten has the feeling of being able to get up and move a little bit easier, it was harder for us to make the move to come to Magnolia. We'd been 11 years in Great Bend, which was about 60 miles from my folks and about a 4-hour drive from my wife's folks. An obvious disadvantage for us moving here, and that was probably the disadvantage, the biggest. And yet, our folks have been somewhat supportive of it, so we move into an environment that we're very comfortable with. And so I think it's beneficial, and I think that Magnolia, much like Great Bend, is a great place to raise kids. And I've got 3 boys, and I think that we're looking forward to having them here and some of the options that they have. Granted, we do miss out on some of the things. You don't get to drive across town and hit a theme park or a water slide that the boys may like to do, or certainly you're not going to go see the opera real quick or type of thing. But you make do with what you have, and you find happiness with the things that are available to you.
Mm-hmm. Richard?
Dr. Holland, of course, every teacher does a little bit more than teach. They have a lot of activities that they sponsor and whatnot. I believe you're, of course, involved in the French Club. Tell us about something.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's right. Tell us about some of the activities involved with the French Club. It's pretty busy, aren't they?
Yeah, we're trying to set up a pretty busy agenda. We're investigating a lot of different possibilities. First of all, we're continuing Dr. Hennessy's tradition of the French film night. I tried it on a Thursday and no one came. so we've decided to go ahead and open it up on Friday nights, which apparently was a successful night in the past. So this Friday night, or I guess this is airing on Monday, so two Friday nights from now, we'll have a movie, a French movie, and it will be in Wilson 216, and I'll send out an all users so that people will know where and when people can come and see the movies. We're also we're investigating the possibility of having a Cajun band come to campus. And we have to work out all the logistics, but we've, on the web, we found one Cajun band, and we're hoping to find others. We're contacting a group called the Codophile in Louisiana, which is an organization that's responsible for the development of French in Louisiana. And since we're right on the border with Louisiana, and there is quite a bit of French influence in Arkansas, especially southern Arkansas, we're hoping to be able to capitalize on that and to make people understand and realize that there are French roots in this region and that it's just up to us to exploit them. We're also thinking of we're trying to plan some field trip activities going down into Cajun country, and that again is dependent on what kind of answers we get from the Codophile, and the possibility of going to Louisiana also, to New Orleans also. And finally we have a French cuisine. We're going to be doing some cooking and eating at my house on November 7th, and we're going to be inviting a Spanish-Mexican muralist, Melchor, to our house for dinner that night. So the French Club will be hosting Melchor, the muralist who's coming to town. And I might do a plug for that also. This incredibly well-known muralist is coming to SAU and would certainly be worth seeing. This will be also very soon in November.
Trying to give the students some experiences in the language, just
Absolutely.
outside the classroom and outside the textbook.
Yes, so we have French Club every other Monday at 5 o'clock, and we also have a field trip planned to Little Rock for the 5th of December to see Le Petit Prince, the Little Prince, put on by a troupe of French or bilingual actors. Okay. So yeah, we're very excited about all the different possibilities.
Mr. Graham, for those who like to get started in computers, what kind of advice can you give them on what they need to do to get started?
I think as youth, the opportunities are becoming quite available within the school system. I know that my boys are having some exposure in the USD locally. Perhaps not as much as what a person might like, but at least it's a starting point. As youth, it's much easier to pick up and use, probably similar to being able to learn to speak. It's easier to learn it when you're younger than older. As we become more and more in tune with using technology in the workplace, obviously it becomes more of a skill that's going to have to be learned and utilized. Probably what I have seen the most difficulty in is people the age of my parents who have a certain fear of learning technology, of using technology. Not that they can't do it. My dad is a prime example. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, no real computer knowledge, experience, so to speak, but he bought his first computer. And from there, it's been amazing what he has done, being able to do spreadsheets, word processing. He's now a bookkeeper for a small entity where he's at. So I would say the recommendation simply is to get into it, use it, whatever your options you have to make it available to you. And with the continued growth in the internet, I think we'll see it more and more in the household, where it will become available to people, whether it's through a PC or whether through a TV and the internet connection. Use it, basically.
Okay. Sorry, everybody, but we're out of time. I would like to thank our guests, Senior Halling and
Thank you.
Mr. Jim Graham, Thank you for coming, and
Thanks a lot.
we'll see you next week on the SAU Report. I'm Ozzie Greene.
And I'm Richard Moore. Good
Thanks-
evening.
Thanks for watching.
The SAU Report is a production of broadcast journalism students in the Department of Theater and Mass Communication at Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.